How's it going, YouTube? Coming to today with another video, and today, guys, the video is going to be signing for Burst Protocol. Now, I've been asked a lot for this video, and it's something that I want to make sure that you really understand because siding is so important. My very first regional top, I had to reverse to most matchups because my side was so phenomenal, and I really had to lean on it. Your side can do that, though, and it's very unique to Yu-Gi-Oh! The sideboard will make or break your tournament run, honestly. It's so very important to get it right, and if you have a really bad matchup that's super popular, yeah, you can always like main cards to help you with that, but your side has to come in handy for the rest of the matchups, right? Because there's going to be cards in your main that are just dead into some matchups, and that's just how it is. So it's something that I really want to go over today and make sure that you are as prepared as possible, especially if you're going to Richmond. Definitely go and check out my sponsors on Gem, Cloud, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, RW, MainPhaze, and Grimoire. And then also, if you haven't already checked my coaching, definitely go and do so for one-on-one sessions, deck building, technical play, going over where you're at in the game and what you want to accomplish, how to do it regionals, how to set up for YCSs. We can go over a lot and more. Also, if you haven't already heard, down below in the description is my Discord link. You should join later today. I'm hosting a tournament, and this will be every 2 days on DB. You're going to be getting an opponent. You play in a single elimination playoff, and it's going to be 32 players. First place is an Italian QCR SP. Second place is a Starlight Dark from Bach. Third place is a Marshmallow, and fourth is going to be a Fallen and Virtuous playset. Pretty insane pricing. You want to be a part of this Burst Protocol new list. This is going to be fantastic testing, high stakes, and high gameplay. So make sure that you're a part of this. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so we can hit our goal at 30,000. Let's hop right into the video. First thing I want to talk about is going to be the decks that you're going to be siding for. So these are just a few. We're going to be going over different decks here than the ones that you see potentially. I know I left out like DD, but it's going to be a deck around that I can do a video on later on if you want. But this is just to show that there's like 15 different decks that you can run into this format at a minimum. So you want to make sure that you are prepared, but I'm going to be going over the most important matchups in the slides, so make sure that you are ready for this and that you are taking notes, because going into these events, having a 15 card sideboard can be hard, but you're going to see which ones overlap the most, and then you can be able to make a educated guess on what you should be running for the event moving forward. Branded Draco Magistus. I added the Magistus there because some people are on those cards. I like those cards a lot. I think they're very much so worth playing right now. They're really good. Crown can be affected by spells and traps, so I don't like it in this matchup because of Flame, but you should be on Double Cyclone for Flame anyway. It's just a really important card to have. Just making sure that your opponent just is going to lose Sting as well, or anything else that they have set, like a Fallen and Virtuous, right? Just because you activated a spell, they chain Flame, you chain Double Cyclone and trade for 2, which is always going to be really plus. Bell is really important in this matchup because there's so many cards, like the new Fallen Summon from hand, deck, or grave, right? So being able to just Bell is easy. Inscription is always going to be rough for this matchup, especially against the Draco Tail part of this. Super Poly used to be really bad against Draco Tail, but now that your opponent ends on like the new Synchro and like Cartesia or the Fallen, right, you want to have Super Poly. You can also run Abalanias in your extra deck, which is hilarious because if they leave Fallen and White Dragon on their board, you can just contact their board like it's a Mega Fleet, which is kind of crazy. So keep that in mind and make sure if you are playing this deck, you're popping your own Fallen and White Dragon so this doesn't happen to you, right? You can always get another copy of Fallen and Virtuous off the Albion that you send to grave, but you have to pop your own White Dragon or else your board's just going to get contacted all day. And if you don't know that, now you do, right? And that's really important. Silent Graveyard, Die-Fi, D-Ground, these are cards you just want to be running. I think that they're good generically into the format, but into this deck, it's killer. And then Evenly is one of my favorite cards right now. Many people are just not on Lancia anymore, and they're not playing decks that weren't being Lancia'd. So having Evenly in your sideboard is going to hit most people for 5 or 6 cards, so it's going to be kind of gross. You want to make sure that you have this card in your deck. The next thing is going to be Radiant Typhoon. This is another deck that we really have to talk about. Again, Die-Fi and D-Ground, really strong cards. Not necessarily the most potent in this matchup, but still going to be effective enough. Evenly, again, they're going to have a lot of set cards. You want to make sure that you have an answer and be able to clear as much as possible. Lightning Storm, Duster, this is a very back row heavy matchup, right? So you want to make sure you have an answer. Your opponent will spam the board pretty hard, so Nibiru is pretty good here. Crown's really solid here. I really like it on Crocea, of course. But you have a couple other options here too that you want to make sure that you have, because even if you don't have Crown, you want something like Chalice, right, to be able to answer Crocea if they just drop in draw phase, if you don't already have Bell or Mourner, because these cards are going to be very useful for that situation. Peruli on this matchup is really strong, and then everything's a win, so Super Poly is going to be really, really good. You definitely want to be on Impulse this format if you can be on Impulse, because of things like Sheena, the card's nuts. So you want to have some kind of answer for it, and of course Impulse is going to be the best one, and they have to control a win, so they're already going to control a card, right? So something that you really want to keep in mind as well. VS Slot, this is going to be pretty generic, I feel. Nothing really going to be too shocking here. Evenly, of course, and then Lightning Storm, Duster, be able to clear out the back row, force out the Snow Devil. This deck usually starts just throwing things on the board too, VS Slops, little canine cards, what have you, right? You have a good opportunity to be able to use things like Nibiru. It depends on where your opponent's at in their combo, but even if you're just trading for something small, I feel like it's still worth it than not. Purley in this matchup is just a god card. It always has been. Same thing with Droplet in this matchup. I really like it a lot just because you can go ahead and shut down things like the Holisu, or if your opponent summons out like a Rosin and you're able to like send a monster, right? It's the same thing as using like Ash on that, because Ash on Rosin's always been just a god card. The deck that a lot of people are thinking about right now is going to be Mitsu Yummy. People are still going to be playing Mitsu Pure, of course, because you still can. Just one Havakiri doesn't really change that. Inscription's going to be a stellar card here. Evenly is still going to be a stellar card. You're just going to be trading for the trap cards usually, but there's no like hard negate on the end board like a Herald, so you're going to be perfectly fine with something like Evenly. I like Lightning Storm and Duster a lot here too, just because you can go ahead and just like get rid of as much as you need, which is going to be really nice too. Nibiru is always interesting in a Mitsu because usually you run into the opponent that's like really bad with their tributes, and they'll tribute everything and leave their board wide open to just getting hit with Nib because it's not like super popular. Especially with the Yummy cards and your opponent's just like spamming the board, a lot of times you can catch them off guard. With the new combo and like Ashland, that's not necessarily new, but it's a thing that people are doing now. They open themselves up a lot harder to Nibiru as well. Bell and Mourner more so for the Ashland, Bell for the bring back effects of the Mitsurugi cards, of course. You can also hit Prayer, but it's like okay. I also really like Bell on pre-prep because that card's going to be a menace this format too. Bystials and DD Crow, I feel like they're both really solid, especially here, of course, right? If you can get rid of like the Snatchy, it's over. And then the other thing too is I really like DD Crow generically into this format because it's really good in a Draco Tail as well, because you can answer things like Urgula, targeting the Femina, right? And just be able to clear both. They shuffle back the Urgula, you banish the Femina, your opponent's in a really weird spot. And there's not a whole lot of answers they have to something like that, so it's also a really good answer into things like the Fallen and Virtuous target when they try to like lock you out of the game with like Invader of Darkness or like Archlord Christia. So things to really keep in mind that are like really important right now. The other thing too is gonna be like Lunalight. There's so many answers to this deck. This is definitely like the best Impulse deck at the moment until we figure out Rocket. And of course it's gonna be more so later when we get Spark, but it's still gonna be a deck around. But Lunalight's gonna be a deck that you definitely will verse, and it's going to be around. This is like one of the last decks besides like Orcus that Lancey is really good into, because your opponent can't use like Wolf and they can't use the Masquerade to banish, right? So something that you really want to make sure that you have in your side if you are worried about Lunalight. Not necessarily going to be the best card generically into the format though. I think that there's better answers into Lunalight right now too. DD Crow and Bystials, of course, being able to clear out the Leo Dancer in the grave so they can't just like copy the name or banish it, right? Is going to be a way to make sure that your opponent only gets like one Liger, because if you banish the Leo Dancer that's in grave, and then you can like clear the Clado chick that has the name of it, a lot of times you're in like a really commanding position because your opponent can only put up like half the board, which is really important to have the banishing effects. Nibiru, again, this is another way that when your opponent rips Poly to go for Liger, you can just go ahead and nib the board, and then your opponent has to summon out something like pretty weak. Usually they need the monsters that are on board, and they don't have the Leo Dancer name anymore in the Kaleido chick. So Nibiru in this matchup's low-key like gas. It's really good. I really like Mortar here too for things like the level 6 fusion, the Perfume Dancer. Bell is really good into the Wolf effect or the Masquerade effect, just so your opponent can't banish like Miracle Fusion into Liger, of course. If you're playing any kind of like Hamp or like Kaiju for this matchup, sure, it's not going to be the best, but like you could, right, if you're really that worried about it. Droll, of course, but you should just be maining Droll. And even like Ogre onto Masquerade's really good, but you should be maining Ogre as well. Deck Lockdown's an auto-win, D-Ground's an auto-win, and Diify's an auto-win. Even Inscription is like pretty nice in this matchup, just saying no Graveyard, right? So even if you say no banishing from graveyards, your opponent can't use Wolf or Masquerade anyway, right? It's pretty good. So it really just depends on what you think is going to be the most effective in that time. I hope they enjoyed today's video. Definitely go ahead and check out my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Instagram, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.